Welcome back to Dr. Sellars Educate. We're thrilled that you're back and happy to continue to support you on your journey towards success on the NLN Certified Nurse Educator exam. Our mission is simple here at Dr. Sellars Educate, and that is to support every single nurse educator to achieve certification on the NLN CNE exam. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We release a new episode every single week. This information is going to help you close knowledge gaps on your journey towards success. In this episode that we're going to start shortly, we're going to be talking about the difference between experiential learning and service learning. Did you know there was a difference? There is. And not only is there a difference, but we're also going to map back to a very important learning theory that we all have heard before, and that is David Kolb. His theory looks at different components and essentially a process that we all follow, especially in nursing, as we learn more about the competencies and the clinical knowledge needed to provide safe patient care. Experiential learning and service learning are often used interchangeably. However, they are different entities. First, we're going to talk about the definition of service learning, as well as some of those key terms associated with experiential learning and how they're similar, but yet different, and the goals that they achieve in our curriculum. There are 4 key concepts that we will be covering today during this episode. It's important to note that on your journey, you want to ensure that you are reviewing content related to learning theories. David Kolb's experiential learning theory is the specific theory that we're focusing on for this episode. First, let's just talk a little bit more about the difference between experiential learning and service learning, how they're similar and how they're different. First, the traditional nursing experiences in the clinical setting that our students engage in, that is termed as experiential learning. These types of experiences allow us as faculty to engage in deductive reasoning with our students associated with learning activities that are important in the clinical setting. However, service learning is a little different. It is often associated with the philosophy of the university or even the mission of the university to connect with the community to ensure that the needs are met. Some examples of service learning activities may be volunteering at a health center, and it is often associated with either the professor engaging and working with the student to achieve specific outcomes, could be a preceptor, could even be a community partner, or the students could complete a self-assessment themselves. Second component that we want to focus on are the similarities between the experiential and the service learning opportunities. They both are and can be hands-on experiences that students may engage in. The second part is that with our learning objectives within our curriculum, we want to ensure that there is some connection even for experiential, whether it's experiential learning or service learning. We want to create that mapping or the alignment between what we expect our students' learning outcomes to be. For more information, you can find this content in Billings and Halstead Teaching and Nursing in Chapter 12. There's a great chart, in fact, that's table 12.1 that's going to list out some of those differences between what we call the traditional clinical experiences or the experiential learning experiences and the service learning that our students will engage in. The second key concept that you want to focus on as you're closing your gaps is related to the 4 descriptors associated with service learning. The categories include community, civic engagement, the connection, as well as the social values. Each of these content areas are aligned with the terminology of service learning. First, let's take a look at community. This allows our students to engage and connect between the academic setting and those concepts that they may hear about, and then the service to meet the community needs. Oftentimes, you may see the university's mission or philosophy aligned with their commitment to their communities. Second key concept is civic engagement. These are defined as structured activities that students are going to engage in to solve a problem within a specific community. The third key concept is social values. With service learning, it tends to focus more on developing some of those social aspects related to the community, even what those stakeholders' needs may be in that specific community, to connect the social needs and the health needs to ensure the community's needs are ultimately met. The fourth key concept under service learning is that connection. We always want to ensure that each of the activities that our students are engaged in are connected to a specific program outcome, and students are clear about the course learning outcomes that will be met in connection or in relationship with that activity. We also want to share in this episode that we have heard from several nurse educators recently about their success on the exam. So we applaud them and just want to take a moment to pause and congratulate more than 10 nurse educators who have been successful within the past couple of weeks. On March 18th, we heard from a nurse educator that was taking the exam for the second time. So for those of you out there, don't give up, stay focused, and remember, we here at Dr. Sellars Educate are going to support you until you are successful, whatever that means for you. Ultimately, we want you to achieve certification, but if you're focusing on just honing in and strengthening some of those nurse educator competencies, we're here to support you in that area as well. March 18th, we heard from this nurse educator, I passed the CNE exam. I never would have attempted this again if it had not been for you and your program. Thank you for everything. On March 5th, we heard that another nurse educator had just passed their CNE that morning. Thank you for your review course. March 16th, one nurse educator says, hi, Dr. Sellars, I passed. The passing score was 92. My score was 100. Thank you so much for your videos, boot camp, and all. I also want to point out that you have access to free resources on our website. If you have not been there yet, go ahead and head over to www.drsellarseducate.com. That's where you're going to find several complimentary resources that are aligned with what the evidence says we should be focusing on in the various competency areas to achieve certification as a nurse educator. And then our final testimonial that we wanted to share, because we do want to focus on the content, is on March 7th, where we heard this statement. I wanted to follow up and let you know that on Friday, I passed the CNA exam. I found your review course and coaching to be extremely helpful for me to create an overall plan for studying. So thank you. As you head over to our website, you're going to see a lot of resources that are available to you. We have complimentary resources that are absolutely free, and they are aligned with the evidence and the literature as we seek to help every nurse educator close all of their gaps in each of the competency areas before they take the exam. All right, now let's get back into our content for this episode. David Kolb is known as an expert in the area of experiential learning. He has developed what is defined as the 4 cycles of learning that happens through experiences. The third concept that we want to hone in on for this episode is what we call our 3-step process to experiential learning, which is the opportunity to explore learning styles of our students, focusing on those key elements of experiential learning, engaging in hands-on experiences with our students, with a major goal of students learning clinical skills. The final step is that connection. We want to ensure that these are hands-on experiences, that they are not observation, and we should incorporate reflection activities. One very common reflection activity is journaling, ensuring that students are taking the time to pause, the time to reflect on the experiential learning experiences that they have in the clinical setting. This is proven to be very valuable as students walk through the 4-stage learning cycle associated with Kolb's theory. First is the opportunity for students to engage in those concrete experiences. The second phase is making an observation and students taking the time to reflect on those experiences. And this is where journaling comes into play. Third, students are able to assimilate those reflective experiences into a concept to connect the influence of their future actions. And then the 4th step of the learning cycle is students actually testing those actions. It can be based on all 3 steps that we've already talked about as they develop what their next steps are going to be. the type of care they're going to deliver, or even the question they're going to ask their other healthcare partners in the clinical setting about what steps should be taken when providing patient care. That is our content for this episode. You can always reach out to us at info@drsellarseducate.com. We continue to see the reported pass rate be lower than we like for it to be. In 2020, it's reported to be 69% for C&E and 74% for the C&E clinical. We look forward to seeing you in our future episode, and we hope this has been helpful.